Euaoi.
If you didn't see my original video on Survivor's New Era, it's pretty clear that I really do not like the direction the show went with going forward. And I can hear you saying, well, if you hate the new era, then why are you still watching Survivor? Well, it's bold of you to assume that I'm still watching this show. I stopped watching after Survivor 46 because despite the recently added 90-minute episodes, it felt like I watched the same season 6 times in a row. And that's really the main problem with the new era for me. The new era really just feels like Temu Survivor. From the shortened game length to the repetitive challenges and every reward taking place at the Sanctuary where good things happen. The most fitting names I could give these seasons outside of the conventional numbering are Survivor Cook Islands if it had negative aura, Survivor Same Crap Different Assholes, Survivor Hiding in Plain Sight, Survivor We Swear This Cast Wasn't AI Generated, Survivor One Captain, Survivor Island of the Unplayed Idols, Survivor Audio Commentators at War, and Survivor 45-2 Electric Boogaloo. Even though I don't watch this show anymore, I still try to keep up with all Survivor-related news if possible, whether it would be through podcasts or leaked rumors/speculations online. And the news I heard regarding Season 50 intrigued me enough to the point where I thought it would be worth making a video about. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. One way CBS has been hyping up Season 50 is by giving fans the opportunity to vote for how the season is going to play out, which is fitting given that Season 50's full name is Survivor in the Hands of the Fans, with the fans voting across 11 different subjects throughout the span of Survivor 48, with some of the subjects being things that the fans have asked for years, such as whether or not to have mandatory Final Four fire making, or choosing to have the votes be read live in LA or still on the island in Fiji, like they've done throughout the new era. While some of these subjects are purely aesthetics based, like what the tribe color should be or what the immunity necklace should look like. I'll go over all 11 of these subjects and let you know what I voted for. And while I'm doing that, you are also free to tell me what you voted for in the comments below, because I'm interested in seeing what the viewers of this video voted for as well. The first round of subjects dropped after the Survivor 48 premiere, with there being 4 different subjects for the fans to vote for, with these options being as follows. What the tribe color should be, whether to give them rice or make them earn rice, whether Final Four fire making stays or goes, or having the vote reveal be pre-recorded in Fiji or live in LA. For the tribe colors, this was purely design-based that had no impact on the season's outcome whatsoever. But the fans could vote for one of 3 different color palettes: blue, orange, green, orange, cyan, purple, and green, red, yellow, with the little color splats next to the bigger color splats being the tribe's accent colors. This also kind of means we don't really get a choice if there should be 2 tribes or 3, which kind of sucks. I voted for the orange, cyan, purple color palette, but I could care less if one of the other 2 ended up winning. At least they're diversifying the tribe colors away from either all primary colors or all secondary colors. And you wouldn't guess it, they're also changing up the tribe colors for Survivor 49. Instead of using analogous colors for the main colors and accents like in 43, 45, and 47, they're now doing complementary colors. Instead of red with orange accents, blue with purple accents, and yellow with green accents, we now have red with green accents, blue with orange accents, and yellow with purple accents. They are really ramping up the production with the tribe colors this time around. The next subject for the fans to vote on was whether or not the players should be given rice or having to earn it. I voted to give the players rice because if giving them rice means getting rid of that stupid rice negotiation segment, because let's be real here, no one would mind seeing that getting cut. The next subject is the first one that genuinely grabbed my attention, and that was deciding if the Final Four Tribal Council should still have the mandatory Final Four fire making or have it be a normal vote out like in the older seasons. And if it wasn't already obvious, I voted to get rid of mandatory Final Four fire making. And it feels like a safe bet that this is going to win. Like, if mandatory Final Four fire making ends up returning in season 50, I'd be convinced that Probst rigged the vote. Because the fans have hated this change since it was first introduced back in the show's 35th season, Survivor Heroes vs. Healers vs. Hustlers. Which makes sense because the person who ended up winning that season made it in the Final Four through continuously finding and playing idols. And won the Final Four fire making, which he would have been voted out in a unanimous vote otherwise. In other words, he won the game by exploiting the idol/advantage system to completely bypass the core gameplay. Not only that, another problem I have with mandatory Final Four fire making is that the twist just results in the threats being taken out earlier. I'll let this online post from Survivor Guatemala Castaway, Rafe Judkins, explain that himself. The last subject that was up for vote after the 48 premiere is to have the jury vote reveal either be pre-recorded in Fiji or live in Los Angeles. I voted to have the jury vote reveal be live in LA because revealing the winner on the island just straight up sucks for both of the losing finalists. In fact, Survivor 43 finalist Owen Knight publicly explained his disdain for the vote reveal being in Fiji. Celebrating it with champagne and crappy Fijian pizza doesn't make up for it either. It just makes the whole thing feel like an adult Chuck E. Cheese birthday party. Also, with the winner being revealed in Fiji, none of the pre-jury boots are present, so it just feels like a big part of the cast is missing. Having a live jury vote reveal would just fix all of those problems that I mentioned earlier. After the 4th episode of Survivor 48, we were given 3 more subjects to vote for, with those 3 being what the final immunity challenge should be, how much power the advantages should have, or whether or not the season should have a tribe swap. For the final immunity challenge, the 3 options were either the final immunity challenge from Survivor 46, where the players had to drop a ball into a giant pachinko board and try to solve a puzzle while the ball is moving down. With the catch, no pun intended, being if they fail to catch it in time, they must stop what they're doing and wait until the ball respawns. The middle option is a generic obstacle course and was apparently the final immunity challenge from Survivor 47. And the final option is Samotion, a classic. I don't really remember what I voted for here, but I think I voted for Samotion because the other 2 challenges have puzzles and it feels like puzzles are being done to death recently. Especially since like 90% of all pre-merge challenges involve some variation of running/swimming over and under obstacles with a puzzle/carnival game segment at the end of it. Again, really not important, but I could see some Survivor Super, no, Giga fans overthinking this once the season ends by saying how someone could have won the season had the final immunity challenge been one of the other 2 not chosen. If it were entirely up to me, I would have loved to see Hand on a Hard Idol make a comeback, but that's just me. The next subject is very confusing in explanation, and it's asking if you want the advantages in that season to have either minimal power, strategic power, or dynamic power. I really have no clue what this is supposed to mean, but I voted for minimal power because not only has the show been pretty advantage heavy for a while, but also because it could potentially mean seeing less of those stupid journeys. And I've heard the journeys have gotten worse lately, such as how it's no longer optional to risk your vote for an advantage and how the journey games are designed so that someone is guaranteed to lose their vote. As for why Jeff thinks the best way to make the game more interesting is to completely strip the players of any form of agency, I have absolutely no idea. And while we're on the topic of twists/advantages, in the 3rd round of voting after the 8th episode, there was an option to either make twists rare or common. I voted to have them rare for the same reason regarding advantages. And now onto the last subject from the 2nd round of voting, with that question being, do you want there to be a tribe swap or not? I voted yes just for the sole purpose of shaking up the format. Especially since the current format feels very flowcharty since they never do tribe swaps unless one tribe ends up losing the first 3 immunity challenges like in 45 and 48. After the 8th episode of Survivor 48, the fans were given 3 new subjects to vote on, with those 3 being what the immunity necklace should look like, the frequency of twists, as mentioned earlier, and whether or not the players earn their camp supplies or have them be given to them. For the immunity necklace, I voted for the second option, but that's really just a nothing burger category. For the camp supplies question, I voted to just give them their camp supplies if it means getting rid of that stupid penalty of losing your flint if you lose an immunity challenge. Why I dislike that is because it almost always results in one tribe just getting completely curb stomped while the other 2 just coast by. And if it wasn't already obvious, punishing the weaker teams just makes for poor game design. And I mentioned twist frequency earlier, so I'm not really repeating myself here. After the 12th episode, the fans were given one last subject to vote on, with that subject being, should hidden immunity idols be a part of the season or removed entirely? And I hate how this is presented because you don't really get an option for the frequency of the idols, instead it's just either all or none. Because ideally, I would have loved to have there be hidden immunity idols, but in a way that once one gets played, another one doesn't get re-hidden. Just to prevent a Ben-style gameplay of just idling your way to the end and completely bypassing everything. It's almost like Probst was being a smartass with this subject and had it be like this just to say that if Idols does win, he'll just say, "See, the fans do want Idols." Which is why I wanted Jeff's smartassery to backfire on him, and I voted for no Idols. While I'm glad the fans finally get a choice to remove mandatory Final Four firemaking, have the finale be live in Los Angeles, and to limit the number of twists/power of advantages in that season, I wish we had other options to vote for, like voting on whether or not there should be 2 starting tribes or 3, or an option to bring back individual jury speeches at the final tribal council because I really miss those. Or even an option to get rid of the Earn the Merge/split double tribal council format. Especially since Earn the Merge with that phrase feels redundant because if they made it that far, well, it's only 5 episodes, without getting voted out, that means they kind of earned the merge. Only to have the merge tribe be split in half for a double boot immediately after, which is weird to me because they had them be split into 2 teams for the Earn the Merge challenge. And now they're splitting them again, even though they're merged. And it makes you wonder why they just don't do the Earn the Merge and the split tribal double boot in the same episode. And then you realize that in the new era, the producers hate doing things that actually make sense. And in a perfect world, we could vote to bring back the 39-day format, but that's just wishful thinking. Also on Wednesday, following the Survivor 48 finale, CBS did a live reveal on who's returning for this season. Yeah, I know it's weird, especially since how season 50 is themed around being in the hands of the fans, yet the fans voted for everything but the cast. I don't really get that, but whatever. For the season 50 cast, it's been confirmed that there are 24 players on this season, a series first. Well, at least for the US version. And it makes me wonder if 24 players is going to be the new direction the show ends up going in, or if it's just going to be a one and done thing. I also had some concerns upon hearing this news. The first concern I have with this is that I feel like the pacing of the season is just going to feel really rushed. Like, how are they even going to accommodate for this? Is every pre-merge episode going to end with a double boot where only one tribe is safe and the 2 losing tribes go to tribal council? If that's the case, then call me crazy, but I think that could actually fix one of the many problems that I have with the new era. Because of the 8 new era seasons that have aired so far, half of them had at least a handful of players make it to the merge, earn the merge, without going to tribal council a single time. Filling the pre-merge with double boots significantly reduces the likeliness of that happening and gives the castaways less room to hide. Even though it would be better to just switch to 2 tribes after 3 to 4 episodes and merge with fewer castaways than 12 or 13, but this also alleviates the problem, albeit in a sloppier way. Going back to the topic of pacing, while there are some shows like The Floor that benefit from having multiple players being booted each episode due to the format and pacing of the show, Survivor is just not one of those shows, since the show's format has historically been built on forming relationships in order to advance further in the game. A slower pace is needed for a show like Survivor in order to show the bonds being formed and how they grow over the season's span. It also doesn't help that the game is only 26 days, much like the rest of the New Era seasons. If Probst and or the CBS executives don't want to go back to 39 days, can we at least compromise for an even 30? All I have to say is, they better get rid of those journeys as a way of offsetting the bloated cast size. Now on to the cast itself, where we know 22 of the 24 castaways, with the 2 unknown players both being from Survivor 49, which won't air until this fall. I'm going to go in the order of the season they first appeared on, starting with the earliest. The first player listed is Jenna Lewis from the very first season, Survivor Borneo. She also returned in Survivor All-Stars, and because of this, everyone from the original Saboga tribe has played at least 3 times, except for Rudy. May he rest in peace. In Survivor Borneo, she was remembered for not receiving a video from home, which was why she made her own video with her ex-husband. In my opinion, I would have much rather seen someone like Richard Hatch, Jervis Peterson, Colleen Haskell, or even Greg Buis as a Borneo returnee over her, but she's fine, I guess. The next player is a lot more recognizable, that being Colby Donaldson from Survivor the Australian Outback, Survivor All-Stars, and Survivor Heroes vs. Villains. While Colby was known for being a challenge beast in the Australian Outback, his performance in challenges was significantly worse in Heroes vs. Villains. It almost makes me wonder how he's going to perform in challenges this time around. It also feels weird not seeing Jerry alongside him because those two have played 3 seasons together, and this is going to be Colby's first season without Jerry. But I did hear that Jerry made it pretty far in casting for season 50, but was ultimately cut. But I'm not going to be covering alternates since this video is already going to be pretty long. But if this video does well enough, I wouldn't mind making a part 2 showing the speculated alternates for season 50 and addressing my opinions on them. We now skip all the way to the show's 10th season, Survivor Palau, where our next player is Stephanie LaGrossa. She was remembered for outlasting her entire tribe in that season, where she returned in Survivor Guatemala to finish as the season's runner-up, where she unfortunately became the second boot in Heroes vs. Villains. Wonder if she'll start on a strong tribe, or just get unlucky again. The next 2 players I'm going to be covering quickly since this is going to be their 5th time playing for both of them, with those 2 being Suri from Season 12 Survivor Panama and Ozzy from Season 13 Survivor Cook Islands. I'm honestly surprised Ozzy ended up getting cast for the season since he now does OnlyFans and Jeff has been trying to make the show more family friendly lately. The next player is from the show's 18th season Survivor Tocantins, with that player being none other than Coach. He went on to play 2 more times in Survivor Heroes vs. Villains and Survivor South Pacific. And it makes me wonder if he's going to try to bring back that cult-like energy from South Pacific to Fiji. We now head into a massive gap between Coach and the next returnee's debut season, with that player being Aubrey from the show's 32nd season, Survivor Karong. Yes, there really is a double-digit season gap between the 2. While she returned in Survivor Game Changers and Survivor Edge of Extinction, Aubrey is best remembered for the game she played in Karong. Especially since despite making it to the final 5 in Game Changers, she really wasn't that prevalent in that season. And in Edge of Extinction, she was one of the first people voted out. And was voted out with an idol in her pocket nonetheless. While I would have preferred to have Sydney as a Karong returnee, especially since she has only played once, but Aubrey is also a nice addition. We now officially head into the post-Game Changer seasons, which means everyone remaining has played only once. With the first one being the runner-up from the show's 35th season, Survivor Heroes vs. Healers vs. Hustlers. And that being none other than Chrissy Hoffbeck. I'm sure Chrissy is in the same boat as me in hoping that mandatory Final 4 fire making gets removed from the season, especially since she lost to the person who benefited from that change. Now moving 2 seasons over to the season that many Survivor fans, including myself, consider to be the best season from the 30s, with that season being Survivor David vs. Goliath, where we have not just 1, but 3 players from that season returning, with those 3 being Christian, Angelina, and Mike White. Overall, very solid picks for people to bring back from a season that had a pretty stacked cast. Even though I would have preferred to see Davey return over Mike, but I could see why he got picked, especially since he's been pretty close to Jeff after the events of David vs. Goliath. Rounding up the 30s is Rick Devens from the show's 38th season, Survivor Edge of Extinction. In that season, he was the first player to return from the Edge of Extinction and made it to the Final Four through either finding idols or winning individual immunities, only to lose fire-making to the second guy who returned from the Edge of Extinction and ended up winning because of it. If the no idols option ended up winning, I'd love to see how he'd do on a season without idols. Now moving on to the returnees from the new era of Survivor, with the first one being Jonathan Young from Survivor 42. Jonathan was remembered from that season for being a total beast in challenges. And that's about it. Now moving on to Survivor 45, where we have 2 players from that season returning. The first being the season's winner Dee, and the season's underdog Emily Flippin. It feels odd having the season's winner return from a season that heavily consists of non-winners. I wouldn't be surprised if Dee was one of the first people voted out because of that. Now on to the next season, which many consider to be the best of the new era, including myself, but I still found the season to be just okay, Survivor 46, where much like David vs. Goliath, we also have 3 people returning from that season, with those 3 being Q, Charlie, and Tiffany. As for my opinions on those 3, I personally found Q to be the best new era pick of all of the cast members in this season. And that was because he was the main driving force behind the entertainment value of Survivor 46 with all of his wacky shenanigans. As for Charlie and Tiffany, they're alright, but they could have picked worse people from that season like Tevin, Maria, or, God forbid, Banu. The last 4 returnees are people who I have no opinion of because I didn't watch those seasons, with those 4 being Genevieve from Survivor 47 and Kyle, Camilla, and Joe from Survivor 48. While I haven't watched those seasons, I kinda have a feeling Kyle isn't going to last long, and that's because of his status as a pretty dominant winner, much like Dee. I also find it funny that 48 has 3 returnees from that season, while 47 has only 1. Even though the majority of people who saw both seasons consider 47 to be the better season of the 2, based on the general consensus that I have witnessed. As for my opinion on the cast, I'm just going to say that the cast could have been a lot better, but at the same time, it could have been a lot worse. As for your opinion, feel free to drop it in the comments, because I'd love to hear what the viewers think about this cast. One problem that I have with this cast is that I can feel the recency bias with some of these choices, since nearly half of the cast are players from the last 5 seasons prior to season 50, especially since there are 3 players from Survivor 48 on that season. This is even evident with how the first 4 seasons from the new era are almost completely ignored, but to be honest, that's not really much of a loss. If I absolutely had to pick one man from seasons 41 through 44 to bring back, I would have picked either Cody or Jesse from Survivor 43. Preferably Cody because of his more colorful personality. But then again, recency bias tends to be a pretty prominent thing with a lot of these returnee seasons. Since 6 of the 10 returnees from Micronesia were from seasons 13 through 15, 6 of the 20 returnees and more than half of all the 2-time players from Heroes vs. Villains were from seasons 17 through 19. Almost half of all returning players from Cambodia were from seasons 28 through 30. Although to be fair, Cagayan did have a really stacked cast. The only All-Star season that really didn't have any recency bias is, funnily enough, Survivor All-Stars, where half of the cast from that season were from the first 2 seasons. Another problem I have with this cast is that all of the returnees who debuted from a pre-Game Changer season were all players who have played at least twice. because there are a good amount of one-time players from those seasons who I would have loved to have seen return, such as Sean Rector, Vesepia Robinson, and John Carroll from Marquesas, Chris Doherty and Twyla from Vanuatu, Brian Corridon from Guatemala, Shane Powers from Panama, Natalie Bolton from Micronesia, Aaron Lobdell from Tocantins. I could go on. Another problem I have with this is that all newbies from seasons 19 through 31 are completely ignored. Why I found this to be a problem is because this season is supposed to be a celebration of the show's entire history, and having this massive gap in representation just doesn't feel right. Sure, seasons 22 through 24 were dud casts, and the fans on Karamoan were forgettable, but I feel like there were some strong candidates from this range of seasons that they could have potentially chosen from. Aside from having Malcolm, Wentworth, or Russell for a fourth time, or Spencer from Cagayan for a third time, we also have some solid one-time players including Dave Ball from Samoa, Marty and Benry from Nicaragua, Carolyn and Mike Holloway from Worlds Apart, and I could go on. While I do like they're bringing back some players from the span of seasons in between Game Changers and Winners at War, Dom from Survivor Ghost Island just feels like he's missing from this cast. Sure, Ghost Island had a really boring cast, but he was the only person on that season, aside from the winner, who would have been worth bringing back for a future season. It's also not surprising at all that no one from Island of the Idols is returning for the season, given the amount of controversies that plagued that season. Though it would have been nice to see either Janet or Elaine return. One more note, I'm kind of sick of Suri and Ozzy. Like, 5 times just feels excessive, and even then 4 times just feels like it's kind of pushing it. But still, this cast could have been so much worse. As for my hopes/predictions on how the season is going to turn out, I hope it isn't a repeat of Winners at War where the older players are all booted before the merge. But I'm feeling pretty confident that won't be the case this time around. Why I believe that is because since the new era places extreme emphasis on threat management, the fact that some of these players haven't played in such a long time, it would make it a lot easier for them to just slide by. And because of that, I feel like a lot of the new era players are going to be having quite a huge target on their backs going into this, especially since their experience in the game is a whole lot fresher than the rest of the cast. Especially with Dee and Kyle since they were pretty dominant winners in their respective seasons. I could also see very physical players like Jonathan being targeted once the merge comes because of their brute strength. As for how I think the players are going to be split into these tribes, for the 3 seasons that have 3 players represented, David vs. Goliath, 46 and 48, I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 tribes had exactly 1 player from each of those seasons. Because why else would they stop at 3? Also, I noticed that there are exactly 6 players from both the first 20 seasons and the 30s. And I wouldn't be surprised if each tribe had exactly 2 players from each span of seasons. Same with the 12 new era players where I think exactly half of the 3 tribes are going to consist exclusively of players from the new era. And that was just a pattern that I've noticed with the casting by eras/seasons being in multiples of 3. Now to end this really long video, this just leaves me with one more question. Will the news regarding Season 50 make me want to actually watch it? To which I'll say I'm 100% in on the season's premiere, mainly out of curiosity. As for the rest of the season, if some of my concerns that I have with this season ends up happening, then I'd have no problem abandoning halfway through. My last question is, will some of the things that we voted on, like removing mandatory Final Four fire making and announcing the winner live, if those changes ended up winning in the vote, will they still be in place after the season, or will it just return to the same old? Because if they do win, I'm hoping they become the new status quo. Anyways, that's all I have for today, and I'll see you next time.